Welcome to Scorpio Rising Radio. I do not have a guest today. Our guest is actually Venus. We're going to talk about Venus next Tuesday. I know I'm a day late with this, by the way. I couldn't do it yesterday. I was so tired. I have several podcasts actually waiting to be released, but some of them have to be edited, and I just couldn't do it yesterday, guys. I just had to respect how I was feeling, and oh well. So next week, I'm actually going to go on with Christina, that was on episode 1 and 2, and we're going to talk about synastry. So make sure you hit the notification bell and you don't miss out on that, because we're going to go over synastry of what happens when you have a planet conjunct the South Node. What are some difficult aspects? And we're going to hit all of those points. Feel free, because this episode today is about Venus and the upcoming Venus and Mercury retrograde. Although I'm going to focus more on the Venus retrograde for Scorpio rising. Let us know where, like, if you have synastry with someone else, what is something that you're really curious about understanding? And that way I can go over those questions and we can take them into next Tuesday's podcast. And let's get into it. Okay. So let's first talk about some key points on Venus. Venus is the second planet from the sun. Important to understand. It is tethered to the sun. So it's the sun, Mercury. Mercury is so important in astrology. Why? Because it is closest to the sun. And then we have Venus. And Venus is actually really hot. And I think it's interesting because when I think of Venus, I think of, like, in the context of astrology, I think of like warm and fuzzy and cool, but it's really close to the sun. And then after Venus, we have Earth, and then we have Mars. And typically we think of Mars as hot and fiery and all of that. But Venus is the one that's actually closest to the sun, closer than Earth, closer than Mars. So another thing to understand too, if you're getting into astrology, that Venus is never going to square the sun, because they're going to be closer together. Okay. So it's just not going to happen. And you can actually see right now, as of recording, you can see Venus after sunset. Like right after sunset, you can see Venus right now. So I haven't looked in a couple days, but during, I think, the first eclipse or right after, you could see her. Yeah, I definitely saw her, I think, around that time pretty clearly. That's usually going to be in the west. And when it turns into the morning star, which I'll get into, you see it on the east before sunrise. Okay. You'll never look up straight into the sky and be like, oh, there's Venus either. It doesn't work like that. So you might notice that now, like, oh, you notice how when you're going on your walk and you know that west is over to your right, and you've noticed that it's always over to your right during a certain time of the year when Venus is in relation to the sun in astrology, it's actually ahead of the sun. It's in a later zodiac than the sun sign. So like right now, the sun's in Leo and Venus is in Libra, two zodiacs after. So Venus is ahead of the sun. Just some also interesting points. Actually, I was saying, if you're learning astrology, you can guess what somebody's Venus sign is based on their sun sign and some observation. So here are the choices for where someone's Venus is. Like, say you don't have their time of, actually it doesn't matter on the time, you could just look up the birthday, but you just met them, you don't have the app in hand, and maybe you're learning astrology, and one of the best ways to learn through astrology is observation. That's how the ancient astrologers did it, is through observation of the night sky, and then watching people and groups of people function, and even things that were happening on Earth with storms and all of that. So, okay, here are the, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options for someone's Venus sign, and it's going to be based on the sun sign. So first option is Venus is the same as the sun sign. Okay, so Venus and sun are the same zodiac. That's one option. Now, another one is, remember, Venus never squares the sun. So it's always going to be within 2 zodiacs away. So sun sign, you have the sun sign, and another option is their Venus is 1 zodiac behind. So an example is you have a Leo sun and they have a Cancer Venus. Now, another option is 2 behind. Okay. So you have a Leo sun and then they have a Gemini Venus. So it's 2 zodiacs behind. And then another option is in the opposite direction. You have your sun sign, we'll say they're Leo sun, and then what comes after Leo, that's going to be Virgo. So they have a Leo sun and then a Virgo Venus. And then the other option and the last option would be 2 ahead. So they have a Leo sun and then they have a Venus in Libra. Okay. So there's no other options. So when you're observing through astrology, those are some things you can kind of guess on. And as far as transits, you can observe how people are acting right now. Like right now we have the sun in a late degree Leo, and Venus is in a late degree Libra. So that is going to be a sextile. So the sun and Venus never square, although you can have a semi-square. I do want to bring up the point, since we're going to drop a synastry podcast for a synastry episode for synastry for Scorpio rising. It's kind of like, what's the best relationships, what to look for in a relationship. I will point out, because it's unnatural and not possible for a Venus to square sun in a natal chart. It's never going to happen. What happens when the sun in synastry is squaring Venus? Because it's not natural, right? So something to think about. Major things to work through on there for synastry. Okay, so there's one thing that I want to go over, because I want you guys to understand Venus before I get later into this episode. Let's talk about if you have a morning star or an evening star in your natal chart. All right. Now, this is going to be easier to understand if you have your chart in front of you. I'm actually going to show you somewhat of a visual. So here we have, let's go to today. And let's make it so that it is for Scorpio rising, so that you can visually see. Is it not going to do it? Let's see. Let's make this whole signs. It always makes it a little bit easier for learning purposes. Okay, I'm trying to get Scorpio on the ascendant, just so visually it's easier for you to understand in the context of your chart. Okay, so here we have, for example, we have the sun in Virgo. This is just a random date. Okay, so the sun is in Virgo and ahead of it is Venus. So this is an example of an evening star. So when you have Venus leading, okay, so it's leading it because they're all going to go in counterclockwise direction. See how Venus just went into 23 degrees. So Venus is leading the sun. So this means that you have on your personality, you have an evening star. So when you were born, you would have seen the star after sunset. Now, in astrology, this person is more cautious when you have Venus ahead of the sun. So you're processing love connections and boundaries and desires and things with money kind of after the experience. And therefore, it makes you more cautious. Now, when you have, I'm not going to change the chart, but when you have Venus, we have the sun in Virgo, say you have Venus back here in this part of the chart of Cancer or Leo, right? Because it's not going to be more than 2 away from the sun, 2 zodiacs away. So then that means the sun is leading Venus. So it's more comfortable. This person can be a little bit more direct. It's like they just know what they want sometimes. They can jump into relationships quicker. It can feel safer. I do think you could get a little bit more deceived because maybe you're not as cautious. So that's the difference between how to know if Venus is an evening star or if she's a morning star. Okay. So again, if Venus is in a zodiac behind the sun, in this case, it would be Cancer or Leo. If Venus was back here, this chart or this person would have a morning star Venus. So very important to understand as we go forward when Venus goes retrograde. And I'm going to go over the eclipses. We're going to start there. Okay. So let me know in the comments if you have an evening star or a morning star, and does this resonate for you? So does the evening star, if you have an evening star, are you more cautious? Do you process things after the experience? And then it's like you're coming back to the relationship and you're saying, this is what I need? Because Venus has to do with boundaries, and it rules Scorpio Rising's descendant, the 7th house of negotiations, how you interact in your partnerships, and how you require stability. So it's really crucial because Venus is like the star of your life to the end of the year for Scorpio Risings. And if we have cross watchers, you got to hang out, you got to stay. So the morning star, you're going to be more spontaneous, direct, and loud. Okay. It's like, I feel like these people just feel more safe to express their love, not as cautious. And one thing to understand too, if you are cross watching or you're a Scorpio rising, and because this applies to anyone, it doesn't have to be Scorpio rising in terms of evening and morning star. When somebody has the sun leading Venus, okay, so you have, in this case, we'll say the sun is in Virgo and Venus is in Leo, or Cancer, or it's still in Virgo, but it's before 8 degrees, okay, in this case, because the sun is in 8 degrees here. They need more freedom because the sun is like leading them. Like I said, they feel more, they could be more secure in relationships, whereas Venus leading, maybe not, okay? Now, I want to go to eclipse season. So I'm going to change the chart to eclipse season. It may not look like a Scorpio rising chart. Okay, it is. Perfect. So let's change this again into whole signs. Here we have the eclipse August 12th. Okay. So I'm setting the stage for what's to come with the Venus retrograde. You guys let me know if we need a part 2, because we may need a part 2 on this, right? Because I'm only going to go so far with this. So here we have on this eclipse, and currently, by the way, we have evening star. That's why if you're going out, you could see the evening star after sunset. And it was pretty good. Just recently, you could see it right by the moon, because the moon was in Libra just recently, a few days ago. I think it's in Scorpio right now. I'm not sure if it's moved on to Sag. So at this time, Venus is leading. Venus is in our 12th house for Scorpio risings. So knowing that Venus will go into Scorpio, but backtrack and go retrograde back into Libra, it's very important that we are processing things in isolation, alone. This is the 12th house. Pay attention to your dreams. Notice that on this eclipse day, the solar eclipse, we have Venus in 5 degrees of Libra, and then the sun is in 20 degrees of Leo. So this 20-degree moon and sun placement of the solar eclipse This is a third decan of Leo. This is Martian energy. This is Mars energy. Mars is your chart ruler. And then we have Libra in the first decan, and Venus naturally rules Libra. She's exalted in Pisces, and Piscean energy is found in the 12th house. So that's why I'm really encouraging Scorpio risings to tap in this energy now, because we are going to revisit it. What are you processing right now in the context of relationships and what you're doing for work and how you're communicating with work, with clients, how you're showing up in the work field? What does your legacy look like? And then on the other part of that, we have Pluto, which is part of the story, and I'll definitely get to at the bottom of the chart. So now I pointed that out. This Venus in 5 degrees, it's very like about on the day of this eclipse, fairness. What is fair? Okay. What is harmonious? And then there's a little bit of drive with the solar eclipse in the third decan. Just made it to the third decan because it's 20 degrees, 19 degrees would be the second decan. Just made it because it's 20 degrees in 1 minute. Very potent energy. What feels fair to me? How can I show up in my 10th house of legacy and career and authenticity? Like how I show up authentically. Okay, super important. Now, I want to go and take you to ahead into the future for August 28th, because today is August 19th, by the way. It's a Mercury day too, if that's significant to anyone. Now, it's not set up for Scorpio rising. That's fine. We have Venus now on this eclipse. We have Venus in 20 degrees. So that is the third decan. And what I want you to understand is that's the third decan of Libra. This is mercurial energy. And then we have the sun. It is a lunar eclipse. So the moon is going to be in 4 degrees Pisces. The sun, though, is going to be in Virgo of 4 degrees. And this is a mercurial energy as well. So this is where are your thoughts at? Okay. And this is so important because we're going to have Venus retrograde conjunct Mercury in 8 degrees, a very intense Martian Pluto energy in Scorpio in your first house. So what I want you to think about is, how are you being led by your thoughts? Because that's going to come up. So this is part of that lunar eclipse story. Now I want to we're going to go to October 3rd. Let's go to October 3rd. Very important day for Scorpio risings. Let's get this to look like a Scorpio rising chart. Wrong direction. Okay. I'm going to move this into whole signs again. Okay. So on this day, October 3rd, a Saturday, Venus stations, and then she goes direct by the 4th. She is retrograde. I said direct. She goes retrograde. Okay. So we have Venus in the first decan of Scorpio. This is very intense. And Venus, 8 degrees. 8 degrees is a Scorpio degree. Notice how we're going to have a pattern of 8 degrees, 0 degrees, which is Martian energy. It's Aries energy. And we're going to have 20 degrees as a theme heavily through the rest of the year and through these eclipses in August. 20 degrees is Scorpio. But it's in Scorpio, it's a little bit softer, okay, which I'll get to. So Mercury is in 5 degrees on this day. So by the 4th, we have Venus retrograde. This is the energy of that day. Can we trust our own thoughts? Here comes mercurial energy coming up again. Can we trust our own thoughts of our personal boundaries and concept of desires and needs? This is what's starting to come up. It's like, this is what's brewing. This is what's getting ready to be alchemized for Scorpio rising. Now, let's go to October 5th. And as we get to October 5th, it is going to be a highly charged day. Why? Because the moon, as we can see, Mars is in 4 degrees. The moon is in, at this time on the chart, we can see the moon's in 9 degrees, right? But it's going to pass over Mars. And then this energy is squaring Mercury, which is attached to Venus. So this is going to be earlier in the day that you'll feel that energy that when the moon squares Mars. So this is going to be very intense energy. You could definitely have some clarity, and the desire and the will is very, very strong. So one of the things that you want to ask yourself is, this is what's going to come up for Scorpio risings. How did I get here? How did I lose my autonomy? Okay. Now remember, now in present time, August 19th, as we're recording and we're listening to this podcast, this episode, Venus is in Libra. What are you doing right now so that you can actualize and hear yourself? The 12th house is many, many things. I'm a 12th houser in whole signs. I have like 5 planets in the 12th house and some extra asteroids and whatnot in there. When you have planets in the 12th house, they are hidden from the person because they are in the subconscious. But remember, we react to the subconscious, whether we realize it or not. Where do we react to that as a Scorpio rising? In the 7th house of relationships. That's why the 12th house for Scorpio rising is like, we self-sabotage sometimes through our own behavior, but it's kind of seen in the relationship. I go in depth in Scorpio Rising Made Simple, which I'll link below. And there's going to be a coupon code there. So that's what's going to come up on this day. And remember, we're heading towards Venus conjunct Mercury. So the energy is becoming a little bit louder. And with the moon having passed over Scorpio, I'm going to go ahead one day. Now we see Mercury 7 degrees, Mars is 4 degrees. This energy on this day is, again, how did I get here? Because we're feeling a lot of passion and a lot of drive to show up a certain way when it comes to our purpose, our soul's purpose, our mission, and how that looks in the public part of our life. One cannot go do authentically publicly if they don't have safety in their private life. And I'm going to get to that because Pluto is the catalyst for that. I do want to remind you that on the eclipse, the solar eclipse that we had that I just showed on August 12th, Pluto was the tail end of that kite formation. Pluto is the catalyst. Pluto wants to get rid of things, and I'll get to that. Now, as this time moves on, what are some things that are going to come up? Well, Scorpio rising can be a little bit bitey on this day because this is Mercury energy squaring Mars. And so you're feeling the pressure of wanting to do something and you're realizing the error of your way and you're taking accountability, right? So it's a highly charged day. But remember, Venus is going to go back into Libra in the 12th house. That's why it's so important. What are you doing right now while Venus is in the 12th house? Because we're going to go back, revisit, and we're going to reassess. Venus is going to reassess there. So let's move forward. Here we go. This is the day, October, is this correct? October, let's see if it's October 6th. So it's between October 6th and October 7th, because I'm not sure if it's after midnight. Yeah, it looks like it's in the, yeah, so we'll say between October, just to be safe, October 6th, October 7th. I don't have the exact time. Venus is conjunct Mercury. So now we're really getting hit with like this message. Now, because this is squaring Mars, the message can come from a masculine energy in our workforce, or something could be happening where we feel like we're getting kind of attacked. We're having to defend ourselves, something to do with the 10th house. This can also be a father theme. So it depends, right, on just your own natal chart and what's going on for you. So this is obviously going to be like general info. So on this day, the ego is very highlighted. That's why if you are feeling a little bitey and you feeling like your willpower is very strong, but you're kind of using it to overpower something, I want to remind you that on this day, the energy is that we want to lean into is true power is in stealthiness. It's in the quiet. And Venus is going to show us that because now she's retrograde and she's going to go back into the 12th house. So this is highlighting how your ego is being perceived. So something's dying here. Now, this is where I'm going to go into Pluto in 3 degrees. Okay, because we have kind of like this T-square energy going on. So Pluto's in 3 degrees of retrograde. This is the opportunity to break free from any past chains that are holding you back, anything old at all. Because we're going to have a Venus cazimi, and that's when the real clean slate starts. Okay. But in the context, in the background, what's going on for Scorpio rising is this. So breaking free from anything in the private life, this is your living situation. This is karmic cycles. This is everything or anything that's been imprinted on you in early childhood. We talk a lot about this in the inner circle. That's only for Scorpio risings, by the way. I go over this in the purpose protocol. I'll link that below. If you're not sure where to start, I would actually say the purpose protocol. Now, the Scorpio rising made simple, I go through every single house. It's all for Scorpio rising. So you can go through it. It's a Scorpio rising on the ascendant. I go through every single house and I talk about the south node in each house, the north node in each house. And it's divided into videos per house and you can jump around. So if you have a Sagittarius stellium, go to the Sagittarius video. And I talk about Vesta in each house, Chiron in each house, and then how that house aspects the others, because that's like the real meat and potatoes of reading the astrology, right? So generational trauma is Pluto's trying to excavate. Now, Pluto is in retrograde. Whenever you have something retrograde, it's internal. So remember that Venus is in retrograde. Now, one thing to be open to that might come up is what it's going to feel like. What are the old rules that you've been subconsciously operating on and it's restricting you? You have the ability to tap into this because Venus is about to go into an air sign, Libra. Pluto isn't an air sign. Okay. So in order to feel safe in the purpose or legacy, that 10th house, you need safety in your 4th house. And that's what Pluto is trying to provide for Scorpio risings over, the next 2 decades. So this Venus in this Mercury retrograde, it's trying to align you with safety, both in the private part of your life and the public part of your life. That is what I could say the gist of the whole thing is. How do you feel safe? You need stability. These are those 7th house themes. You need stability. You have 7th houses for Scorpio rising as Taurus. Stability, predictability in all partnerships. This carries from your clients to your partners, to your lovers, etc. Instability relationships, whether it's clients or your partners, something's going on in the 12th house, in the subconscious. And that's what Venus wants to give you the opportunity to change. This is clean slate because we're going to get to the Venus cazimi. And it has to do with how right now we're in the cycle of an evening star. We're going to move into a morning star energy. So let's go to October 7th. Are we on October 7th? Yeah. Okay. So we're done with October 7th. And one thing too is we're going to go to October 23rd. Let's move it to, there we go. Perfect. So on October 23rd, Venus is still ahead of the sun. Okay. And we can see that we would say this person, because the sun is in Scorpio, we are now in Scorpio season, October 23rd. Friday is a Venus day, by the way. So the sun is 0 degrees, but it's chasing Venus. So this is evening star energy. Also, it's a kind of a cazimi, kind of. Like this person, if this were a natal chart, this person can associate their ego too much with their Venus, and it can get in the way. Okay. This is part of what's trying to break up for you in the energy. If you have a fear of being perceived, it could be because there's not enough stability in the private life. So this has a lot to do with our 7th house, those angular houses, the 1st house, the 4th house, the 10th house. So this is actually happening exactly, let me change the time, at 11:44 p.m. Now I'm not going to change the chart. I know it says Cancer rising, okay, but we'll just focus on this. This is to the minute. This is when it's actually I think it's technically like 43 minutes and then some seconds, but regardless, right? It's just a quarter to midnight on October 3rd, Friday, a Venus day. We have the Venus cazimi. Some numbers that come up. If you see the numbers 43, 44, 23, pay attention to that. Here is the fresh slate. Here it is. Okay. This is new beginnings. Now, Venus having gone through Libra for some time, that's the now. Okay. Because remember, Venus is now in Scorpio and then she's backtracking, she's retrograding. So if she's retrograding, where is she going to go next? She's going to go into Libra because she's in conjunction with the sun in Scorpio of 0 degrees, but she's going retrograde, or we could say backwards, not literally, but so she will go into 29 degrees. So she's passing over the sun. But this is the shift that we go from that energy of evening to morning. And one thing I didn't mention is that, or maybe I did, yeah, the evening star person, when Venus is leading the sun, they're more cautious, right? This energy for collective, but focusing more so on how it is with your private life and the public part of your chart for Scorpio rising, because this is happening in Scorpio of 0 degrees, so potent. Mars energy, Aries energy, by the way, super important to understand that. This is the clean slate where you are starting to take charge. And remember how I said people who have a morning star where the sun is leading Venus, they're a little bit more free. They're not as cautious. So if we could apply this to the transits, why are we maybe willing to be less cautious? Because we're so grounded in our boundaries, which is ruled by Venus. So this is a really great shift for the old ways of people pleasing being burnt down. Where? Well, this is in our 7th house. It's all things relationships. How are you How are you negotiating with people? What are your terms? Are you changing the terms in your business? What are you doing to make things more secure and stable for you? And I intentionally use the word stable because we're talking about Taurus energy on the 7th house for Scorpio risings. That's on your descendant. You need stability to alchemize. You need safety in your private life to do the Phoenix rising work, to alchemize. When you're doing that, and you know that you're being authentic, that's when that public part of your life, your legacy, your career, your work showing up on social media, that's when that really starts to really align. And there's less fear-based actions going on there. Now, one thing that you really want to focus on this time, and this is where I'm stopping. That's why I said we may need a part 2. Let me know what you think. This is what we're contemplating. This is what's coming up during this retrograde. And also right now, because remember, Venus is in Libra, and Venus here on this day, this Venus Cazimi, she's about to go back into Libra. So it's around this time, it's very pivotal. This is what we are exploring. How can I have harmony with another if I don't have harmony with the self? That is Venus in our 12th house for Libras, or for Scorpio risings, Venus and Libra. That's what it is. And I explain that in the Scorpio Rising Made Simple. So crucial. If you want to join the inner circle, we go live every Monday, 7 p.m. I love it. It's like my playground. It doesn't feel like work to me. I really appreciate the people that show up, and we have people of all ages. We are actually going to walk through the next about 90 days together, and it's going to be very Venus oriented. This is all about Scorpio Rising's personal autonomy, because that's what's at stake here. Okay. So let me know in the comments what's resonating for you. How is this showing up? If you do want to work one-on-one with me, I'll put that link in the description below. And then make sure you hit the subscription bell, because next Tuesday, we're going to have an episode all on synastry and love and the 7th house and the 12th house, and what it looks like for Scorpio risings when they're in a healthy relationship versus an unhealthy relationship, and why it actually matters maybe more than any other ascendant sign. So I will catch you guys on the next episode, and we will see you next time.